Greetings Exiles, BullShifter here back with another Path of Exile PS4 tutorial video. Today I wanted to do a little bit of a kind of quick and simple video just based on the different crafting items that you can use on your armor and or weapons. The reason why I'm doing that today is because tonight's stream I'm actually going to be starting it off by doing a little bit of crafting. So I thought this video would be fitting to kind of preface that with just some examples of what each orb is going to do when we go ahead and try and craft those items. So I'm going to start at the top here. These are different quality items. So Blacksmiths Whetstone, self-explanatory, it improves the quality of a weapon. It's based off the rarity of the item itself. Since we're going to be scouring down an item first to start crafting on a base item, a base white item, we'll actually only need to use 4 of these to get the item to its 20% base quality, which is the highest it can reach just strictly using Blacksmiths Whetstones without any sort of corruption or additional modifiers. Armor scrap works the same exact way, except for armor instead of a weapon. Glass Lawyer's Bauble is that for a flask. Gem Cutter's Prism does the same thing for a gem, and a Cartographer's Chisel does the same thing for a map. So tonight I'm going to be focusing on crafting a chest piece, so we'll be using Armorer's Scrap, and like I said, we'd be using what's down here called an Orb of Scouring. It removes all modifiers from an item. Now when you do that to an item, regardless of whether it's a rare item, so one of the yellow texted items, or a magic item, which is a blue texted item, it's going to revert it back down to a base white item, so a normal rarity item, because it's not going to have any modifiers on it, which will automatically make it a white base item. Chromatic Orbs, this just reforges the color of the sockets on your particular item. I have done different videos in the past kind of explaining how that works, where it is based off of the base stat that is on the item itself. So for something with the base of armor, you're going to have a higher probability of rolling red sockets. For something with a base of energy shield, you'll have a higher probability of blue sockets. And for anything with evasion on it, you're going to have a higher probability of rolling green sockets. So something to also keep in mind. An Orb of Fusing is going to reforge the links between the sockets on an item, so essentially it's going to help you to get the full connections between the different sockets on your item, so that way you can maximize the amount of support gems you can add to your skill gem. A Jeweler's Orb will reforge the number of sockets that are on an item. Now keep in mind that different items they are limited in the amount of sockets that they can have, 1 based on level, and 2 based on item type. So at later levels, gloves, boots, helmets, and one-handed weapons, well actually no, helmets, boots, and gloves maximize at 4 sockets. One-handed weapons maximize at 3, and then two-handed weapons and your chest piece will maximize at 6. You can potentially also have 1 slot in your rings, and if you have a belt from the Abyss, you can potentially have an Abyssal Jewel slot in your belt. Moving on, we'll just start from the far left here. An Orb of Transmutation upgrades a normal item to a magic item. So it's going to change a white item into a blue item, and it's going to potentially add either a suffix or a prefix modifier, or one of each. An Orb of Alteration is going to reforge the magic item with new random modifiers. So something to keep in mind here, the Orb of Transmutations is only going to work on a white item. If you want to change the modifiers on an item that is already blue, and you want to change both of them, you would use an Orb of Alteration, which is going to completely re-roll the modifiers that are on that magic item. An Orb of Annulment is going to remove a random modifier from an item. This can be for any rarity besides a unique item. So it can either be blue or yellow, and it's going to remove 1 random modifier that you may not want from that item. An Orb of Chance, if you have a normal white item, it's going to upgrade it to an item of random rarity. So that can be a blue magic item, a yellow rare item, or you have less of a chance of this, but it can also upgrade a white item all the way up to a unique item. Some uniques are more easily obtained this way, and I believe there are actually some uniques that are only obtained this way. In Orb of Augmentation, it is going to enchant a magic item with a new random modifier. So the main place that we're going to use this is, say we use an Orb of Transmutation on a normal white item to upgrade it to a blue magic item, and we only have one modifier that's actually on that item. However, it's a modifier that we really like, and we don't want to use an Orb of Alteration to potentially lose that modifier and have it completely reforged with one or two new random modifiers. Since we only have one modifier, we can use an Orb of Augmentation to strictly add one more modifier onto our blue item and keep that single modifier that we gained from the Orb of Transmutation. Now moving along, an Exalted Orb is going to enchant a rare, so a yellow texted item with a new random modifier. Now, I would highly advise against using Exalted Orbs in crafting unless you are very experienced with crafting and you know exactly what you're doing, because the risk versus reward on using an Exalted Orb for crafting is minuscule. Exalted Orbs are one of the more valuable forms of currency in the game. Probably only, well, it is only outmatched by the mirror, and it's giving you a random shot at one more modifier. Now, if you have a fantastic item and you believe that you have a good chance of getting the modifier you need on that item, and it is a super valuable rare item, I guess you can use an Exalted Orb. However, for the most part, unless you have a ridiculous amount of Exalted Orbs and just no better use for them, this probably is not a good use for an Exalted Orb. Moving on, a Regal Orb will upgrade a magic item to a rare item. Now, these are very commonly used in crafting. The reason for that is it gives you more control over the items that you are crafting. So say we've gone ahead and we've used an Orb of Transmutation, we've used a couple of these other orbs to get a magic item with two modifiers that we really like, and now the next step would be to use a Regal Orb on that blue magic item to upgrade it to a yellow rare item, so that way we can have more modifiers on the item. Now, say we get modifiers that we don't want and we want to go ahead and start all over. That would be a reason to use an Orb of Scouring, which will remove all of the modifiers from an item. Orb of Alchemy, some people will they'll call it elking. And you can random elk, and Elk Spam is what a lot of people will call this as well. It's when you have a normal white item and you just upgrade it all the way to a yellow rare item, completely bypassing the blue to yellow process that we had just discussed. It's done. It's a bit more chaotic. It does not give you as much control over the modifiers that you're going to get. So it's not necessarily the most efficient way to do things, and unless you just don't have Regal Orbs and you're just looking to upgrade a normal to a rare item, I wouldn't recommend it. A Chaos Orb will reforge a rare item with new random modifiers, so this essentially is doing the same thing that the Orb of Alteration did on the magic item, except the Chaos Orb will do it for a yellow rare item. Now keep in mind, it is going to reforge a rare item with potentially all new random modifiers. You know, some may stay just based off of the randomness and the rolls, but for the most part, you're going to be completely changing that item. So typically, I really only use Chaos Orbs on maps that roll modifiers that I don't like, so that way I can avoid having to scour them and then elk them. A Blessed Orb will randomize the numeric values of the implicit modifiers on an item. Now, an implicit modifier is a modifier that is not a suffix or a prefix. It is something that is assigned to a specific base number, and this strictly will let you re-roll the numbers on that. So that'll conclude our video today. I hope to catch you on the stream tonight. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, may the RNG be with you, always.